So what does it look like to meet Jesus on his terms? Because if I want to live a life aligned with him, to know that freedom, to know the fullness of life, not just die and go to heaven one day, but to live into this life, what does it mean to meet Jesus on his terms? This is what he starts to explain to Nicodemus. And for all that Nicodemus knew, he ends with the question, how can this be? So for Jesus, we don't get to dictate when. These are some of Jesus' terms. Jesus determines when. He doesn't operate on anyone's schedule but his own. Paul would say it, today is a sufficient day, an acceptable day. He's talking about the day of salvation. This is the day, some of us would sing back in the day. This is the day. Paul would say today is the acceptable day of salvation because this is the day the gospels come to you. This is the day when you interact with Jesus. This is the day when you see God for the first time. This is the day when you experience something that maybe religion or tradition or shame or guilt or burden has put in the way, and now it's clear and you're seeing Jesus for the first time with a clear lens. That's a good day. And he determines the when. He doesn't operate on anyone's schedule. In John chapter 5, Jesus is walking along. It says when Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been there for a long time. In John 5, the encounter is about superstition. What do we do with this? Laying next to the pool there at the sheep gate, interestingly enough, in Bethesda, and that pool was rumored that on just the right day, if you could be ready, the pool would ripple. It meant an angel touched the water and you could get well. But this guy was blind, had been lame, paralyzed, laying on his mat really close to the pool. So when Jesus walks up to the guy and he says, do you want to get well? Sometimes we think about that in this real serene kind of pastoral, do you want to be healed, child? Jesus is like, bro, you've been sitting here next to the healing well for how long? And you're still here. Do you, in the Greek, would say, even want to get well? Because you could have touched the water a long time ago. You could have met your superstition a long time ago. So here's the real question. Do you really want to get well? Do you really want God to move in your life? And the guy's like, I have no one to put me into the water. Excuse after excuse after excuse start to fall. Unless someone comes and puts me here at the right time, and that guy has been there for a hot minute now. And Jesus just goes, get up and walk. And the guy does. No excuses, no delay. Jesus determines the when. He operates on his own schedule. Jesus determines the where. And his where goes far beyond guilt, shame, and burden. We think about the people that Jesus interacted with while Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house. Now, you may pause and go, well, Matthew wrote the Gospel of Matthew. He's, of course, on the inside track with Jesus. But what you don't know is his entire neighborhood hated him. He was a tax collector. Completely betrayed his own community to make money from the Romans. Lined his own pockets. So Jesus is having dinner with Matthew. Many other tax collectors, sinners, they came and ate with him and his disciples. And if you continue the story, the people who are watching around, they start to get mad. Why does he eat with sinners and tax collectors? Jesus determines this. These are his terms. And when he was challenged by religious leaders, he would tell them, I didn't come for the healthy, I came for the sick. And over and over and over, the religious leaders of the day believed they were healthy and never saw it within themselves to go, Jesus, I need that. And sometimes our church tradition does the same thing. We miss Jesus because we look at everything else around and go, I don't see Jesus here in the where. And yet he shows up in those same broken places today. Why? Jesus doesn't come to reward the worthy, but to give rest to the weary. We meet Jesus on his terms. It's never about, look what I've done, Jesus. Kind of awesome, don't you think? Like, there's nothing wrong with accomplishment. Like, go get it, cool. But what I have to offer him versus what he has to offer me, no comparison. I was talking with a friend this week who's just, man, he's just going through it, and he said, I feel like my life is crumbling. He got betrayed by a business partner, left them in like terrible financial crisis. Everything's just kind of going south, and it's just like, I just don't know. He's like, I know God's doing something, but I feel like my whole world's crumbling. And I said to him, I said, hey man, there's a difference between crumbling and stripping away. We got to get those in the right spot. I said, think about what Paul said. Like Paul, the Apostle Paul, goes to like this brag list. Like, I was born of the royal tribe of Benjamin. I was a Pharisee, trained in the upper level schools of Gamaliel. Like, it would be like saying he had a Harvard education if you value that kind of thing. Born of the right people. Like, maybe in America he would be a Kennedy or a Reagan or a Bush or something. You kind of choose your family. A Rockefeller. Went to the best schools, had the best bloodline, the best inheritance. And then Paul says the most beautiful thing, I consider it all rubbish. And rubbish is a nice way because the Greek is far more offensive. I consider it all rubbish outside of knowing Christ. Everything that we could say. Jesus doesn't come to reward the worthy, but to give rest to the weary. He came to seek, by his own profession, and save the lost. And this is meeting Jesus on his terms. Sometimes it's not just recognizing that he is God, it's recognizing that I am not. And I bring that to him and go, Jesus, I'm one of the weary. I'm not worthy. I need you. We don't determine the how. Jesus begins with the person. He leads with presence. And this is significant, right? Filled with compassion, Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. He sees the person and brings the presence. All the things of control, the when, the where, the why, the how, when it comes to Jesus, we have to let go of it. He's the one to live aligned to him, to live my life with him, to experience this the kingdom has come life that Jesus talks about. It begins with that space of giving up my control, ignoring the influence of the gatekeepers, and coming to Christ on his terms. Anything else is going to be a misaligned soul that is frustrated and fighting for something you can't provide because only Jesus can. And that's the invitation of Soulignment. To experience faith beyond guilt, shame, and burden begins, as Nicodemus found out, with meeting Jesus on his terms. Just as Moses lifted up the snake in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up, so that everyone who believes in him may have eternal life. For God loved the world this way, that he gave his one and only Son, so that everyone who believes in him would not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Anyone who believes in him is not condemned, but the one who does not believe is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the one and only Son of God. This is the judgment. Light has come into the world, and people loved the darkness rather than the light. But anyone who lives by the truth comes to the light, so that his works may be shown to be the accomplishment of God. We don't get the end of Nicodemus' story here. How he walked away, what he said next to Jesus, the story moves. We do know that when Jesus died, Nicodemus and another Pharisee named Joseph came together to provide the tomb. I imagine at some point in his life, Nicodemus said, "I'm with Jesus." And that's what we see. But Nicodemus had to work through his terms. Everything that he thought the Messiah should be. He had to work against what they thought, all the religious stuff that was put in and all the traditions of the day that were put in. And he had to come to Jesus on Jesus' terms. And that's where life is found.